Hi, everyone, and welcome to Vikings Now. We're coming to you a little bit later because we had to wait for the Vikings to get their game over with because they went to overtime inexplicably with the Chicago Bears. But they do win 30-27. So for those of you in the camp of not how you did it, but how many you won, you're satisfied. But for the rest, I don't know.
Hey, a win's a win. A win's a win.
Oh, by the way, that's Pierre Noujaim. I'm Jim Rich, Fox 9. How are you? I'm out Hicks somewhere out there, but I'm sure he'll add his thoughts in the comments. He could do that.
Maybe so.
Because there's a lot of good comments we've been getting.
Maybe so.
And last week we should address it. Everybody was saying they won the game. What are you guys so upset about? We were trying to point out some deficiencies. That's all.
No, everybody's sensitive. Everybody's very sensitive and overly sensitive about their teams. It's very, very rare that a intelligent thought makes it into the comment section, no matter what piece of video that you're working on.
Here we go. Well, now you've blown this week's comments.
I don't care. But here's the fact of the matter. The fact of the matter is the Minnesota Vikings are 9-2 through 11 games. 9-2. Not a single person out there, I think, would have predicted that they would be off to a 9-2 start in this football season. It didn't go exactly according to plan. Obviously, when you're up 2 scores with under 2 minutes to play, it should be absolutely automatic. And that wasn't the case for Minnesota. But kudos to them for rising to the occasion and overcoming the adversity that they faced late in the fourth quarter and in overtime. Remember, the Bears got the ball first in overtime. They absolutely could have taken control, marched down the field, scored what could have been a game-winning touchdown. But the defense rose to the occasion in the overtime period, got the ball back, and Minnesota was the team that took care of business. And the Bears, boy, it's just so hard to think about where they could be at this point of the season, Jim. They were a Hail Mary away from being 5-2. They had a blocked field goal last week against Green Bay that could have won them that game. They could have come back and won today's game. It's just the thin margins of winning and losing. The Bears seem to be on the wrong side of it. And fortunately for the Vikings this week, they're the recipient.
Yeah, so the Vikings get the victory, but there's a lot of things to look at here. The team, again, they had these opportunities. Aaron Jones, just right out of the gate, fumbles at the goal line. He has done that now at least 2 times I can remember this year where he was going in for a score and forgot the football. And so you end up just taking situations that should be much easier than they are. This should not have been an overtime game. The Vikings need to figure out a way to finish games.
Yeah.
We talked about this last week where they muddled around till the end and got it done. This one again today, you're up by 2 scores. This should not have gotten ever even close to overtime. Yet here you were again. And the reason we pick on this stuff, or at least I do, is that when you play better teams, because you will play them, you've had a soft stretch. This was the underbelly of your schedule right now. These last 3 games on the road, they got through it. They got the wins, but you really don't want to look to see how that wins were made because there's a lot of ugliness to those victories on the road. So how do they figure out how to finish this?
Well, first and foremost, it starts like kind of what you were talking about. They got to be better in the red zone. Just 3 for 7 in the red zone today. Their offense in the red zone seems to just kind of get in their own way. Turnovers certainly don't help that.
Right.
And red zone turnovers have been an issue. We saw what happened 2 weeks ago in Jacksonville where Minnesota had 3 of them, and it was just a complete disaster for them. Luckily, they were able to win that game, 12-7 in Jacksonville. But turning the ball over is going to kill you every time. Again, they get away with it today. It was only 1 turnover, but they still get away with it. The red zone offense, though, it just seems like at times when they get down there, it suddenly starts to lose steam a little bit. We didn't see TJ Hawkinson for about 3.5 quarters today. Then suddenly in the 4th, he comes to life. And in the overtime period, he has one heck of a grab that puts Minnesota in position to win the game. Now, there are times, especially today, where I understand that you want to run the ball, and they did a good job of running the ball today.
Yep.
But I would have liked to have seen TJ Hawkinson involved a little bit more in these goal-to-go situations. Didn't see him come out on a lot of first down opportunities. Again, I understand you want to run the ball, but he's just such another dynamic weapon, especially from 10 yards in, that a defense has to account for. I think his involvement, we saw it, like I said, at the end of the game and into overtime, his involvement was added and, thankfully expected by this point of the contest. So if you get him involved, I think a little bit more in those goal-to-go situations, that's the other element that I would add to the wrinkles that is this red zone offense.
Well, to use your NBA term, the ball gets sticky.
Yeah.
For them in the red zone.
Yeah.
It just, like you said, it just doesn't flow like it normally does when they're marching down the field. Because, again, they piled up the yards but didn't get the results they need. So is that Darnold? Is it the play calling? What is happening here? Like, you're suggesting we need to see more Hockenson in these goal-to-goal situations. They try to run the ball into the end zone, but is Aaron Jones truly a short yardage running back? Because of his size. He's not like, Derrick Henry, where you can line up 8 guys and he'll still push the pile
Few of them
and knock everybody backwards 6 yards. So what do you think has to happen down there? Where is this going off the rails? Is this O'Connell not taking what he's being given, or what do you feel?
I think there's multiple layers to this thing. First and foremost, let's not forget you're missing your starting left tackle on Christian Darrisaw, who's a big part of the run game as well. We saw Cam Robinson go down with injury. He left the game
foot
today.
Injury.
David Questenberry had to come in and relieve Cam Robinson for the rest of the game. Played okay, I thought, but if David Questenberry is going to be
that's why they went out and got Robinson to begin with.
Exactly right. So you're hoping that Cam Robinson is healthy. So you don't have your left tackle. Today also you didn't have Josh Oliver, who does play a role in this offense as well. I know.
Especially goal line.
Goal line to go. He's a great blocker, physical guy. And as we've seen throughout the season, a guy who can catch passes for you in short yard situations as well. Or if you're facing like a 3rd and 5, he's an outlet for you as well. So, I mean, that factors into it. But at the same time.
But this isn't just today, though.
No, it's
right?
not.
I mean,
you're right. It's
this whole winning streak on the road. Like you said, Jacksonville, they didn't even get into the end zone at all.
Right.
So we all know Pete Bursich draws it up all the time, how it gets condensed and it makes it harder to run routes, and it's easier for the defense to cover because they don't have to worry about anybody taking the top off the defense.
Well, from 10 yards in, it's, for the most part, it's got to turn into power football. And like you said, Aaron Jones is no Derrick Henry, but Aaron Jones is certainly capable of breaking off 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 yard runs. We saw him today break off a 40-yard run.
No, he was great today, over 100 yards.
Yeah, he was. So from goal to go, from 10 yards in to go to the goal line, it's got to be a power football mentality.
Right, but can Jones be that power back? Right,
I don't see why not.
When you're out, in midfield or in your own end, and you could pull those defenders out, that gives Jones more room. When you've got to get through 4 people within 2 yards.
Well, and he's been playing banged up as well. Like the ribs
the
ribs have been bothering him for the last couple of weeks. But yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, he is the type of back that we have seen. Remember in his years in Green Bay. Again, I know the Bears have a guy like Roshan Johnson for when they get from the 2-yard line in, he's the guy instead of DeAndre Swift. So I understand that you have this 1-2 punch, but the Vikings don't really have a guy like that on the roster. You could argue C.J. Ham maybe from a yard out. If you turn around, hand it off to the fullback, he could be that type of guy. But the Vikings don't have that. So they're going to have to lean on Aaron Jones. I know Cam Akers is certainly capable of doing it as well, but you don't really have much of a choice. If you want to play power football, these are the backs that you have, and you need to find a way to open up holes for these guys because, they're not going to be pile pushers, as we say, in terms of these big physical running back types. But everybody's got to do their job when it comes to power football. It's not just the running backs.
Yeah, and a side note for C.J. Ham, we send our condolences to he and his family.
Yeah.
Kevin O'Connell brought it up in the post-game speech to the players, gave him a game ball. His grandfather apparently lived in Chicago, and he spent 5 hours with him last night. He passed away this morning, and still C.J. went out there and played. And played a pivotal role. So sometimes life is bigger than football. Mm-hmm. So we all extend our heartfelt thoughts to CJ and his family on losing that. But I mean, I don't know if cool is the word, but how nice was it that fate put the Bears on the Vikings schedule for this Saturday night so he could be in that town to spend that few last hours with his grandfather. That worked out pretty cool for him there that he could do that
Not a
and
lot.
then
Yeah.
play the game.
Yeah, not a lot of us get a chance to say goodbye sometimes to loved ones. So I'm hoping that at least CJ got to say goodbye, brings him a little bit of closure and a little bit of peace today.
No doubt about it. All right, back to the football and the fun, and put life to the side for a minute. But you look at what Darnold did today. Ever since he's went on that run where he had the 6 turnovers in 2 games, 5 interceptions, and the fumble, he's cleaned up his act. He has not been the turnover machine that everybody was worried that we saw coming back again, that we thought, uh-oh, the green in his old Jets uniform was starting to show under the Vikings purple. He's straightened it up here. Is he playing the way now that is satisfactory for this team moving forward? Or is there more to do besides not just turning it over?
I think a game like today, it was clean for the most part. It was pretty clean football. And if you get that type of performance from your starting quarterback in this league, you're going to have a great chance to win the game. I mean, the reason why they were in a tussle down there at the end is because Minnesota's special teams, which was terrific all day leading up to that point. They blocked a field goal. They recover a muff punt in the third quarter and turn that into a touchdown. And then suddenly at the very end, you see a big kick return from DeAndre Carter that helps set the Bears up with an opportunity
For the first touchdown.
to close it to win the 3. Then they botched the onside kick, a play that, especially in this league, the rules make it nearly impossible for a team to recover an onside kick in the NFL. I wish they would change the rule and add a little more excitement. But today was the type of excitement that Vikings fans certainly didn't want to see. Ball hits Johnny Mundt. It's a live ball, even though it didn't travel 10 yards. So special teams today, I thought we saw a little bit of Jekyll and Hyde with them. And I think that's the reason why. If you get a performance like we saw today from Sam Darnold, again, this game should have been over at 27-16 for the most. It should have been over, but it wasn't. So, but then Sam Darnold comes out and leads his team down the field. When you've lost all momentum, and then you finally get it a little bit of it back as you force a stop in overtime to march down the field and put your team in a position to win. It's the type of performance you want to see. I don't see how you can argue with anything from Sam Darnold today.
Yeah, 24 of 34, or 22 of 34 for 330 yards. I think that's a new high for him as a Viking. 2 touchdowns. That's now a new career high for him in season, for the season total. I think it's over 20 touchdowns. So that's another milestone marker for him. And you're right. The drive in overtime is something that everybody's been waiting to see.
Yeah.
Because as you said, the tide was totally turned against the Vikings after the Bears score a touchdown in 22 seconds. They screwed it up because had they not gone for 2 the first time after they scored, they would have been able to win the game at the end with that 2-point conversion, or with that field goal rather, instead of just tying it and forcing overtime.
I don't love chasing points. I mean, I understand the mentality. If you go up, if you get it and you're only down 6, then you get the ball back, go down, try to score a touchdown, you win. You can win the game with an extra point. I understand the mentality. I've always been of the mindset of you don't go for 2 unless you have to. But I'm not going to argue with the analytics of what you could have gotten if you would have made it 24-18 instead of 24-17. I mean, that's a coaching decision, and Matt Eberflus makes that call, and the result is the result.
And that's why the Bears have 4 wins.
That's right.
Because of the decisions he's made.
Partly, yeah.
All along the way. Caleb Williams, he's not had this kind of game in his career yet. He was great early in the season. Then he's kind of regressed. He got sacked 9 times in that one game last week against the Packers. Wasn't that rock solid? Did he show you something today, or was it the Vikings defense letting him get what he wanted?
No, I think he showed me something. I saw growth from Caleb Williams today, and also you saw what kind of a dual threat he can be. There was a couple of plays where he was just dancing around in the pocket, hurdled a guy at one point, and raced for a first down. But I also saw, especially in the overtime, I believe it was in the overtime, when on first or second down, where he had apparently all day to throw.
Second down.
And ends up taking a sack. He was back, I counted to almost 10, and I said, how in the world do you not get out of the pocket and try to throw it away? He took a sack in that situation, which was absolutely befuddling to me. I couldn't believe it. But I saw growth from Caleb Williams today. I think the Bears do have a franchise quarterback on their hands. Obviously, they changed offensive coordinators in recent weeks to try to get the offense jump-started. And it worked today a little bit. 27 points on the board today for Chicago is a heck of a lot better than what we've seen from this team in the previous month. So, yeah, I think Caleb Williams has a bright future ahead of him. I think he played well today for the most part. I find myself stopping a little bit short of saying he's going to be, this next tier of guys. It's too early to tell.
Yeah, but look at all the chaos he's surrounded with.
Sure.
Your offensive coordinator gets fired. The Bears have been the Bears for a while.
The line seemingly always seems to be a mess every year with that team as well. But he's going to have every opportunity. I mean, they drafted him number 1 overall. No chance they're going to be giving up on him anytime soon. I think
not like Daniel Jones?
No, Daniel Jones. But if you go back to week 1 of the podcast after the Giants game, the Vikings and the Giants, we sat here and we both said, the Giants will be looking for a new quarterback next year. It was as obvious as anything I've ever seen. Then Daniel Jones will be moving on and finding himself employment with another team. But best of luck to him.
Yeah. The rush defense, again, for the Vikings, outstanding again today. This group leads the NFL, I believe, in yards allowed via the ground. They have been just fantastic today. Again, held the Bears to under 4 yards per carry, just 3.5. Chicago basically had to give up on running the football because this group is so good. But they end up giving a lot up through the air and at critical times. We talk about the offense being able to close the door.
Yeah.
The defense had done it before, but today they didn't. They didn't until that overtime drive.
Right. Yeah, and I think a lot of that had, in terms of running the ball, the Bears were down 2 scores in the second half and had to play catch up, obviously. So you don't necessarily need to abandon the run game at that point yet, but you're going to be running it a lot less than you're going to be throwing it. DeAndre Swift is a guy who can really change a game for you. If he gets off to a good start, a lot of times DeAndre Swift can really change the way a game is played because he's so versatile. We love him running the ball. He can catch passes out of the backfield. The Vikings did a great job bottling him up today, and that certainly proved well for Minnesota on the afternoon. But in terms of when you look at Minnesota through the air, that's the thing. Against the run, this team has a great week, seemingly week after week. In the air, it's a bend don't break mentality for this secondary.
340 yards they gave up today through the air.
It's a lot. And how long can they hang on in these type of situations where they give up a big day to a quarterback but still come out and get a win? To be determined, I guess, because we're going to be seeing a couple of pretty good quarterbacks in the next couple of weeks. So, yeah, I think there's some work that still needs to be done in the secondary. But for the most part, when you have a team that's desperate and you're running that 2-minute offense and that 2-minute drill, sometimes communication gets lost. Sometimes it's a bang-bang situation. Sometimes people just make a great play. And I saw a couple of great plays from the Bears receivers today. So I'm not hammering this secondary, but there's certainly room for improvement, I think.
I think if the rush does not get home, the Vikings' back end is exposed.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing is when they have time to pass, the back end, because of their age, they have got great experience, no doubt about it, but the tread on the tire is almost gone on a few of those guys that are back there, and I think they can only stay with their guys for so long. So really it's got to be Flores' blitzes, his schemes, his attacks, because I think that's why he lines up 8-9 guys on the line of scrimmage for the deception. Because if he played a straight defense, I think it would be tough for those guys on the back end. And it is tough for anybody in the NFL now with the rules the way they are in favor of the wide receivers and the tight ends and the running backs. Can't touch them after 5 yards. If you're anywhere near them, that flag comes flying out. So I think that's got to be the key going forward. They've got to continue to figure out how to get consistent pressure on the opposing quarterback. They got 3 sacks today. I think they still lead the NFL in sacks as a group.
They lost Ivan Pace today early in the game as well. That's certainly not going to help your cause, losing your starting middle linebacker. But I want to take a moment real quick, actually, to just give credit to Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, because remember when Danielle Hunter walked out the door, we were sitting here all asking ourselves, well, how are you going to supplement that kind of sack production? I mean, that's a tough player to watch walk out the door and try to mimic the type of production from a guy like him. And bringing in Jonathan Grenard and bringing in Andrew Van Ginkel, even though Gink didn't have a sack today, got his hands on a pass, pressured the passer. Grenard did get a sack today. Those 2 guys have come in and absolutely given the exact type of production that you needed watching Danielle Hunter walk out the door. They have been every bit as good, if not better at times. So getting 2 for the price of 1, so to speak, with not having to pay Danielle Hunter the big payday that he wanted, but you're still getting the type of production, and you're getting the type of production from 2 guys. Especially Grenard, probably he was sought after. Van Ginkel was a little bit of an under the radar type move, even though he had a couple of good years last 2 years in Miami. But and certainly for the price tag that they got him at right now, it's looking like a bargain contract for Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. But I just wanted to, I think credit needs to be given here to the Vikings front office for doing a great job of supplementing the loss of Danielle Hunter, and this team still being able and showing the ability to get after the quarterback on a consistent basis.
And they give what Flores wants, guys that don't have to rush every time.
Yeah.
Especially Van Ginkel.
Yeah.
He could drop back into coverage.
No doubt.
We've seen him reading plays, making the interceptions for the pick 6. And that's really what those guys have said to you, to me, to everybody when they go into the locker room talking to these players, is that everybody knows everybody else's position.
Right.
So Van Ginkel said, the reason I could jump those routes and take a shot is because I've been taught what everybody else is doing around me. So I can ad-lib a little bit.
Sure.
And I know if I take a stab at something, I miss, I know it's not going 90 yards to the house because I know there's a guy over here. So that's allowing me to take that chance. And that's the versatility of this defense, is that they can send anybody. They can send Cashman. They can send Pace. They could send Grenard. Or they could pull those guys out. That's why it's so effective. If you go up with 8 men to the line and 4 guys always leave every time because they never rush, well, then there's no purpose to that smoke and mirrors that you throw up there.
Right.
The idea is that any one of these guys can come and get you, and they can. And I think that's why this has been so successful for them.
And let's not forget Patrick Jones, who's having a career season. I think he's up to 7 sacks on the season for Patrick. He's having a career year, and it's just another example of Brian Flores putting guys in a position to succeed. He's been doing that ever since he got here. Last year, remember, at the last 4 or 5 games of the season, the wheels kind of fell off the wagon a little bit. We're not going to lie. I mean, the production wasn't there at the end of the season defensively. But hopefully that doesn't happen again this season. But it looks like Brian Flores is better prepared in terms of where he wants to take this defense and how to keep them fresh and keep them going as the season gets a little longer in the tooth.
All right, so now after 3 games on the road, which the Vikings were perfect, they come home for 3 straight, and it starts next Sunday. Do you see anything about coming back home that's a concern to you? With, now you're back in your own barn, that kind of thing? Or is that really not a thing in the NFL?
I don't really think it's much of a thing in the NFL. Although I will say, when you're gaining momentum on the road and you're going out there and you're getting booed and everything is against you, it's kind of a hunkered down mentality. I think there's something to that in the NFL when it's you against the world out there on the road week in and week out. When you're at home, you could kind of let your hair down a little bit, and sometimes I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing, but you have to take advantage of you just took advantage of playing these subpar teams on the road. And I'm not saying necessarily that you should have blown these teams out by 20 to 30 points every single game, because winning on the road is very difficult in this league. But now you have to defend your home field, and because if you don't, all of that is for nothing.
Right.
So it starts next week with the Arizona Cardinals coming into town. And that should be an entertaining ball game, because that could be, depending on how things line up. I think Arizona lost today in Seattle. Depending on how things could be, that might end up being a first-round preview. We don't know. It's still too early to tell. But we're going to be seeing a couple of teams in a row that could be a first-round preview, with the Atlanta Falcons coming in the week after that.
And I think what's the amazing thing is you're sitting there with this gaudy record at 9-2.
Mm-hmm.
You should be 2-3 games up in your division. You shouldn't have this concern. But here, Detroit won today. The Packers won again today. Mm-hmm. So nothing changes. Everybody is all right there. And you could still fall to the third spot. I mean, which is amazing to think that you figure you finish with a record that's, 10 games over 500, 9 games over 500, and you don't win the division, and you don't get a shot at that bye.
Well, and that's why it's extra important in these next 2 weeks for sure, well, 3 weeks I'd say with Chicago, to defend your home field, because the season ends with a home game against Green Bay and then at Detroit. Those two games could very well swing the division in the final 2 weeks.
No doubt.
So,
it's going to come down to the final 2 weeks.
Of course. So you've got to do your part to give yourself as much of a cushion as you possibly can going into those final 2 games of the season, so it doesn't absolutely kill you.
Yeah, so we will see where this all goes. All right, if they'd like to personally comment on your comments, or where do we find you on X and Instagram?
You can find me on X at @TheNouj, Fox9, and you can find me on Instagram at @the_Nouj. Feel free to comment away. I probably won't read them. So
read them.
You read them to me.
Yes, well, so then they're read. You understand. So comments, please let us know what you think. And where can people watch this podcast? They happen to just stumble upon it, or they see a clip on your X or your Instagram account. Where's a good home base?
Well, certainly on the Fox 9 YouTube channel. That would be my first suggestion. But don't forget,
Great suggestion.
You can also watch it on Fox Local, and you can download it wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts.
Remarkable.
You can listen to Vikings Now.
We have great people here that get this out to everybody.
Absolutely. We certainly appreciate them and helping us with that and getting us off and running here on the Vikings Now podcast. What do you think? Before we go,
yes,
Cardinals coming in next week. That's an intriguing game. How do you see that game playing out?
Well, I mean, they're basically a 500 club at this point.
Yeah.
So,
but they play hard. They're hard. They play hard.
They're better than, I think, a couple of teams, 2 of the 3 teams they played the last 3 weeks.
No question.
So this will be a challenge. The thing is that you sometimes get concerned with about why I asked you why when a team comes home. Because a lot of times coaches feel they have to put on a show, right? You have 60,000 people there. They want to see a deep ball to Jefferson. By the way, 2 catches today.
Yeah. We didn't even talk about Jordan Addison the day that he had.
I know, Addison was fantastic. Yeah. Those catches he made, approval of his father.
That's
we
good.
saw that.
That's good. I'm glad everybody's happy.
It's all family now, he says on his X account. Jordan Jefferson.
Justin Jefferson.
Him too.
Yeah.
Not seeing a lot.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, it's. We talked about this actually a week or 2 ago.
Was he not being used enough?
Well, we also talked about Jordan Addison's involvement or lack thereof, and you saw what happened today when you actually start looking for number 3 a little bit more. But that's just because Justin Jefferson isn't catching passes. That's the thing. Just because he's not catching passes doesn't mean he's not impacting the game. And he's impacting the game in ways of where he's rarely single covered, and that leaves the door open for a guy like Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson. So just because the numbers aren't there doesn't mean he's not impacting the game. That's all I would say on Justin Jefferson.
All right. It'll be interesting, I think, against Arizona. Well,
it should be a fun game.
They made this interesting against the Bears, where it should have been boring as heck, but we digress. All right, that'll do it for us. Thanks for checking us out. We'll look at the comments. I'll tell them what you guys say, so be kind. It's a holiday week, okay? Be kind, and we will talk. And some of your points are very valid. I do agree. We click on them.
I will walk back my original statement from the beginning of the podcast. I did see some good comments from here and there that you've read to me. There have been some good.
There's very intelligent people that check this out because they know Fox 9 is a great station and you're home for Vikings football. We have Game Day Live every Sunday morning. Post game tonight, 10:35 with Mr. Burschitz. Always good entertainment, and we keep you informed throughout the week. So that's enough of us. You have watched it to the very end. Applaud yourself, and we will see you next Sunday after the Cardinals game.